Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on today's episode of The Kitchen. Today I want to talk to you about something a little bit broader that really does relate back to the kitchen. And sometimes in the American culture, we've come really far away from what is in our kitchen. And as I've said to you guys before, the kitchen is very important to me. It's where all this stuff happened. It is where food got generated from. It's where people sat and gathered and spoke. Events got discussed and hashed out and meals were made. And this is a really important part of my growing up. And, now I think a lot of times our lives has just gotten so much busier and we don't depend on cooking at home or eating on the fly or grabbing food out. It's become such an ingrained part of our culture now to not cook that it doesn't really stand out. And I always think if we go back like 100 years in time, if you didn't have the skill set to cook, you were in trouble. Your family was in trouble. You had no options. So sure, now we have options and it's progress, right? But what is the cost of that progress, of that time saver for us? And I'm hoping that at some point there's a pendulum swing, right? Where, we don't need to be out, like actually farming, right, for our meals. You could be, which I think is great. And I grow some, very minimal type stuff here at the homes. And I know a bunch of people do that, but I don't 100% depend on going out to kill my meal and, in a hunt, or I don't have to depend on crops to support me and my family, right? But now we're so far on the other side of that spectrum where we don't really have to do any of it. Everything is available for purchase. And I always try to remind people that when we're purchasing foods outside of the home, foods that we did not prepare, the company typically doesn't really care about the health of that meal unless that's its niche, right? It says it's a healthy meal. And even then I would question because that's what I do. But if you're going out and you're just swinging by someplace what you would consider even like a healthier version of fast food, the calories, yes, they're there, but we've gone like nose blind to a calorie list of like, oh, well, that's like, 700 calories for, that burrito. And we're like, oh, okay, that's great. Well, for a lot of us, that's 50% of our calories or, maybe 40% of our calories. So we've kind of like tuned that off because we're so accustomed to seeing it all the time. Conversely, you don't want to be buying those 100 calorie snack packs either because we don't really, it's an arbitrary number that we've been conditioned to think is okay. So I'm fired up about this morning, and I'm talking about it in our kitchen because I've come from a meeting where I do interact with other healthcare professionals, and it just seems like there's no end to, functional medicine or chiropractic or holistic healthcare practitioners that talk about, hey, if you want to be healthy, we need to choose good foods. We need to move throughout the day. We got to be hydrated. We got to sleep well, and we got to manage our stress. End of story. And I get very frustrated when I hear my clients or other healthcare professionals, clients talk about like, oh, they just, they didn't get to the root of the problem. They just treated the symptom. They gave me this pill. Or they said like, oh, don't worry about your blood sugar. Just take this pill. Or, oh, you have high blood pressure. Just take this pill. Or, you've got some, you've got some blockages. We'll just do surgery. We'll just clean that right up. It's not always the right treatment. Now, certainly there's reasons where we need to have medications and we need to have surgeries, but it's become so commonplace in our culture that is our go-to. And we now underestimate the value of a home-cooked meal. Nothing more than the actual nutrients that are provided in that. There's no hardcore preservatives in the food in my kitchen. If I source my ingredients, if I just buy fresh fruits and vegetables and lean proteins and fish and I make a meal, I don't need to put in MSG or, potassium sorbate or nitrites or nitrates, which are just, our foods are riddled with some of these. Our foods are riddled with things that we put in lipstick, right? We eat them, the glycols, right? that we just eat that. We eat plastics in our foods because they're preserved. And it frustrates me to no end when people come to me with chronic illnesses and chronic conditions from years of conditioning of like, this is our food supply, this is what we choose, everybody eats this way, or it's okay, I just take a pill, I didn't make any lifestyle modifications. And so while I don't want to stand on a soapbox and be like, hey, we need to do this, but I do want to change people's mindset about how we approach our health and what we've been conditioned to believe, whether it's through marketing or advertising. We always say like broccoli's got a really crappy ad campaign manager, right? Like what happened, right? There's no marketing around broccoli, right? Or, any other healthy, wholesome foods. But, there's tons of marketing around processed foods or restaurants. And why is that? And because it works and we're conditioned to believe that that's the way to go. And I would absolutely implore you to evaluate. Do you understand how to cook in your kitchen? And if you don't, that's okay. It's no judgment. But stick with me and we can learn some simple tips and tools around the kitchen so that you can make some steps towards getting yourself healthier. My tagline is always like, your life, only healthier, right? I don't want to come in and be like, this is what you got to do. But I do see a lot of illnesses that don't get treated by the root cause. They just get Band-Aids slapped on them. So I want to be a resource for people to try to help understand, like, all right, Anne, what should I do to help myself get off some of these medications or not have to take them in the future, or avoid a surgery, or avoid the mindset of like, oh, I'm just getting older, I can't move as well anymore. I know a 90-year-old woman who's out doing Ironman, right? We've got, 65-year-old women swimming from Cuba to Florida. If it was age, it'd be all of us, right? It's not. It's a lifestyle and it's what we're conditioned to do. So if we eat well and source our foods well, if we move each day and take care of our soft tissue in our body, and we sleep well, we get restored, we manage our stress so that those stress hormones don't increase our heart rate and our blood pressure and have us accumulating fat around the midsection. If we understand how to manage that and we get we keep our hydration, those are the things that can really help push off a lot of those medications and a lot of surgeries or a lot of treatments that are really just Band-Aids for symptoms. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Kitchen. I know it's an episode a little bit more in your face, but it's because I just came from a meeting where I'm listening to how we are starting to really just, I don't want to say lose the battle, but I feel like we're losing some footing around what patients are being told and how we should treat ourselves. And so if there's one thing that I could ask from you guys for this week is to stop and evaluate, trust in yourself to say like, what makes me feel better? Not in the moment, but what makes me feel better, right? So in the moment we might say like, oh, well, like that, salted caramel ice cream makes me feel better in the moment, right? Maybe we should work on other stress management techniques. It just, this salted caramel ice cream would make me feel good, whether I was having a good day or a bad day. But evaluate. What is it that you are doing? Are you just dismissing your accountability for your own health? Are you taking care of yourself? Because if you can implement those strategies, you'll be a lot healthier, you'll be a lot happier, your life only healthier. All right, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of The Kitchen. And next week, we'll start to do some of these small steps that I talk about in the kitchen, whether it's just making the turmeric cinnamon tea or learning how to dice up an onion, because once you can dice up an onion and put it into your pan, everything tastes good. Little onion, a little garlic, you can't go wrong. So thank you all for joining me on this episode of The Kitchen.